What's up? Welcome back to Quintessential Reviews, and today we're here to review the latest Walking Dead episode 13, called I forgot the name, called Bury Me Here. Okay, so first off, before I even get into the review, let me just say one thing. Let me send a message to AMC. Thank you. Thank you so much for this episode. Now, the reason why I'm thanking them is because last episode was just so dull and boring, in my opinion, and just overall just not a good episode, that this episode makes up for that, in my opinion. This was a good episode, and I'm going to tell you why. Um, the main reasons why I think this was a good episode is, one, it had a lot of characterization in this episode. It had a lot of symbolism in this episode, a lot of foreshadowing, and just overall was a good episode, in my opinion. Now, I'm going to get into the symbolism in this episode, the characterizations of this episode in a second. There's really two main characters I'm going to be talking about in this episode, and that's Morgan and Carol. Also, Benjamin is another important character in this episode that I'm going to be talking about. So, the first thing I want to talk about pertains to Morgan in particular. Morgan and Benjamin's kid. I forgot Benjamin's not his son. I don't think it's his son. I'm pretty sure it's his brother. I forgot his little brother's name, so I just called it the kid. But yeah, this what I'm about to talk about mainly pertains to Morgan and Benjamin's little brother. That's the scene where Morgan says, "Before you came to me and said you wanted to knock your brother on his feet, is that really what you want?" And the kid says yes. Morgan says, "No, you want to be like your brother." And the kid says yes. Now, this exchange foreshadows the kid talking to his taking his brother's place, not only in the kingdom but also in the show. It's symbolic of both of those things. Now, what I mean by in the show is, I mean the kid, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that kid is going to end up taking Benjamin's spot in the show. That also means we're most likely going to be getting more screen time for the kid sometime in the near future. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is Benjamin, which this is pretty much the scene right after the exchange between Benjamin's little brother and Morgan. Now, right after Morgan said that, "No, you want to be like your brother," we see Benjamin walk past the camera, and he stops because he's listening. And then when Morgan said that and he heard his little brother's response, he smiled at Morgan. Now, this can be interpreted two ways. One, it could be interpreted as him entrusting his little brother to Morgan, because he smiles at Morgan. That could be seen as a sign of trust, that he's trusting Morgan with his little brother, trusting him to teach him the same things he taught himself and just lead him in the right path. And it could be interpreted as him leaving the show, because he smiles at the camera, or smiles toward the camera. It's implied that he's looking at Morgan and his little brother, but he's looking at the camera, then he smiles, then he turns around and walks off. Now, that could be symbolic of him leaving the show, because if you didn't know, by the way, I should have said spoiler in the beginning, just in case you haven't watched the episode for some reason, you're watching this review. But spoiler in case you haven't watched it, but Benjamin does die in this episode. And that could be symbolic of him walking off, could be symbolic of him leaving the actual cast of the TV show. So let's get into the motif of this episode, the sign. Now, in case you don't know what a motif is a reoccurring image that happens in literature. So in this case, it'll be the episode that just keeps popping up, and just basically helps to for the viewer to understand the underlying message of the episode, aka the thing. So the motif in this episode was the sign. Now the sign I'm talking about is the one-way sign that we keep seeing throughout the episode. I think at one point, I don't remember, but I think at one point Carol kills a walker with it. But I could be wrong about that. She might have used something else, but I thought she used a walker to kill. She used a sign to kill a walker, but I don't know. I don't quote me on that. But we see the one-way sign throughout the episode, and that's symbolic of, well, that could you could apply that to Carol, you could apply that to the group, and you could also apply that to Benjamin and Richard. And here's why you can apply it to all those people. The one-way sign could be applied to Carol because of not really a revelation that she had, but basically she just came to the decision to fight, because she ends up finding out the truth about what really happened between the saviors and the kingdom. I mean, not the kingdom, but the group. She finds out that Glenn died. She finds out that Abraham died, and a couple more people also died. And that obviously makes her mad and upset. And she finally decides to fight. And it's been a while, and I've been waiting. We've all been waiting for Carol to come back and fight, because she's just a beast. When she gets serious and when she's fighting, there's no regrets. Like, she just goes straight in. She doesn't care. She just goes in and she finishes what she starts. Which is why I'm excited that she's finally ready to fight now. But the reason why the one-way sign could be applied to her is because she's finally deciding to fight, it's a high risk that she could die, and she knows this, which is why the one-way sign applies, because essentially it's a one-way ticket. If she really decides to fight, she could lose her life, because and like in this fight, and if she does, that'll be one way. She goes there, she dies, she won't be able to come back. I think Glenn, I'm not Glenn, I think Maggie, no, not Maggie, what was her name, Sasha, and that other girl, I forgot her name, but Sasha and that girl that got the scar on her face, I think they ended up saying something like this last episode. It's a one-way ticket or something like that. I remember them saying something like that at the end of the episode, which is probably where they got the name for this episode. But yeah, it's very it's very risky. That the possibility of death is extremely high with this. So that's why it's essentially a one-way ticket for her if she really decides to fight, which she is. So that's why it's a one-way ticket for her. It's a one-way ticket for the kingdom, because King Ezekiel finally decides that he's gonna fight back in this episode too. Because I'm gonna go a bit more into detail as for why I really think he decided to fight back in this episode. But for now, I'm just gonna say he decided to fight back, and because of that, he's gonna be using the kingdom. He's gonna be using all the resources of the kingdom he can, or he has, to fight back. Meaning the people there, the amount of weapons they have, which probably isn't a lot, because over the time that they've been giving their stuff to the saviors, they're probably already giving most of their, if not all of their weapons to the saviors. Especially in this episode, they gave even more of their guns to the saviors. So I'm pretty sure they don't have that many weapons, unless they've been saving them somehow and hiding them from the saviors. But I doubt they were doing that. Maybe one of them could have been, but I doubt King Ezekiel would have allowed that. So yeah, it's a one-way ticket for him, because if he goes into this fight, a lot of people is gonna die, and he could possibly die too. So the risk of death is really strong there. I think that's why they particularly chose a one-way sign to make the motif of this episode, because it's a one-way ticket for a lot of people if they decide to get in this fight. And we've seen it. I think it was in season 4 when they first season 5 or 6, I think, where they where Rick and the group first went into the base and killed all those saviors. I think a couple of Rick's people died too. So if they get into this fight, there's gonna be deaths. Who's gonna die exactly? We don't know. But we do know that this could be a little foreshadowing that someone's gonna die because of this one-way one-way sign. And in my opinion, it might be Carol, because she was seen around the one-way sign the most. So I think it mainly pertains to her, but like I said, it could also pertain to the kingdom and the group. And I say the group because it's the whole death thing. If they get into the fight, someone could possibly die, and it could be a one-way for them. Also, Sasha and Renetta, something like that. I know it starts with an R. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember. It's Ronita or Rosetta. There we go. That's her name. It's Rosetta. Sasha and Rosetta. They said in the last episode something along these lines that it's a one-way ticket for the both of us, and I just want to make sure you know that. And Sasha was like, yeah, I know that. So it can pertain to them too, and also can pertain to what are their names? Benjamin and Richard, because Benjamin, it was a one-way for him it was a one-way trip with him and the others meeting with the saviors. When he got there, he got shot. I mean, he didn't really die there, but him being there caused his death. So it's essentially a one-way, because yeah, he made it back, but he died. So I guess it doesn't really count. And it can be seen as a one-way for Richard too, because he also died during the meeting with the saviors by Glenn. I said Glenn. Why I keep saying Glenn? By Morgan. By the way, that scene was crazy, with Morgan just strangling the life out of Richard. Yo, bruh, like I like this Morgan. I like this Morgan a lot more than maybe we shouldn't fight. Maybe we can talk to them. What did he say a couple episodes ago? Maybe there's another way that we can do this, and all the other nonsense that just made no sense. Cause come on, son, another way against the saviors? Really, Morgan? But Morgan, he's getting it now. He's understanding completely what the stakes are and how heavy the situation is. And he killed Richard, and I'll get into why he killed Richard too later on. But yeah, it can pertain to all those people, and it can apply to all of those people. And I thought that was a pretty good motif, and especially with the theme. The theme of this episode was essentially enough is enough, because they've been taking crap. Like, everyone's been taking crap from the saviors for a while, especially the kingdom. Yeah, especially the kingdom. And in this episode, it was just enough is enough. Like, you've killed too much. You've walked all over us too much. You've done what you want for too long. Enough is enough. And we're gonna finally decide to fight back. And you're not gonna see it coming either. And that was also part of basically Richard had a plan to set in motion that he was trying to set in motion, but that ultimately got Benjamin killed. I'm going to get into what that plan was later. But that's, yeah, the motif went excellent with the theme. It all just came full circle and just made perfect sense, and just felt it just fitted well with the episode. Unlike last episode, oh my god, last episode was so bad. I don't know what they were doing last episode, but this episode is good. This is a good episode. Alright, let me go more into that with the analysis. There's something I want to mention, which I found that was pretty ironic, to be honest. So, at the beginning, Carol walks over to the kingdom, basically because she's sick of not knowing, because she's had suspicions that Daryl just might not have been telling her the truth, because she's not stupid. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, it's not that she doesn't trust Daryl, but I think she could tell that he wasn't really telling the entire truth. Like, she felt something. And you could tell because in the beginning of the episode, she's presumably having a nightmare. And the implication is that that nightmare might have been about the group, because, or I mean, I I guess you could really, it's really opinionated. I think the implication was that it was mainly about the group because of just how worried she was, because she immediately gets up after that, um, and just goes to the kingdom in order to figure out the truth. But you could also say that she could have been having a nightmare about maybe her family she lost, or maybe someone she killed, or the daughters. I'm not the daughters, but the little girls back in season 5, I think it was. Remember them? By the way, though their deaths were crazy, she could have been having a nightmare about them because she's been through a lot. So there's a lot she could have had nightmares about. But I'm pretty sure the implication was she was having a nightmare about the group. Maybe she was having a nightmare of someone dying. Maybe she had a nightmare about Daryl dying. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it was a nightmare involving the group somehow because of how worried she was. But yeah, she goes to the kingdom seeking the truth from Morgan about what really happened between the saviors and the group. And basically Morgan basically says like, yo, I can't tell you. It's not because I don't want to tell you, but it's just because that's something Daryl started between you two. So I think Daryl should be the one to tell you the truth. Like, you and him should be the one to basically just like figure that out between each other. It's ironic because the same thing kind of happens at the end of the episode if you pay attention. Like, in the end of the episode, the exact same thing kind of happens except in reverse. Morgan shows up at Carol's house this time. Morgan comes to Carol, and he's all bloody, just like Carol was bloody when she came to Morgan in the beginning. Morgan was bloody because he had strangled Richard to death, and he was killing a whole bunch of walkers because he went on this whole, he was basically reverting back to his old roots by going insane and crap. So he just started going crazy, killing a whole bunch of walkers with his stick. And by the way, this is another thing too, which I'm going to get into later in the episode, which pertains to his beliefs and how they're seeming to change in this episode, which is interesting. But he shows up at Carol's house with all bloody, and basically shows up to tell her the truth, which also pertains to his beliefs, how they're changing. Now, the reason, like, as a fact, let me just get into that now. As a matter of fact, the reason why he didn't tell her the truth the first time she came to him was because he wanted to respect what Daryl had started. He didn't think it was okay for him to just say what happened. He felt like it would be better for Carol to hear it from Daryl's mouth. He felt like he was being respectful that way, and that that would have been right. But at the end, he decides that that's just screw that. I'm just gonna tell you up front because I don't care anymore. So there's a shift in his belief. He thought it would have been right for Daryl to tell her and not himself, but then he tells her anyway, meaning that he doesn't care about that. So that sense of what's right is either being faltered or is now gone. We don't know. We don't know if it's completely gone or if it's just been faltered. Another good example of how his beliefs are changing is before, Morgan just used that stick he always carried around as defense, but now he actually, we see him kill. He used it to kill someone. He killed Richard with it. I mean, he didn't physically kill him, but he knocked him down on the ground with it, and then he just got on top of him and strangled him. But I'm pretty sure if he couldn't strangle him, he would have killed he would have killed Richard with it. So there's just another example of Morgan's change and the way he's thinking. Before, he wouldn't have even killed Richard, and he definitely wouldn't have used his stick to kill Richard if he had to, because that stick is supposed to symbolize Morgan's change of kind of like his save some Because that dude that gave him the stick, I forgot his name, he essentially saved Morgan from this cruel world, because Morgan was just, he was just dead inside. Like, he was just walking around pretty much just looking like he was ready to end it all. And anyone who got in his way, he would have just killed him like that. But that stick represents a sense of hope, a sense of a regain of humanity for Morgan. And now it looks like he might have lost a little bit of that again. Maybe all of that. Who knows? But yeah, I want to talk about something Narilla told to King Ezekiel, which Narilla is a character. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing her name right, but Narilla is a character that we just got introduced to this episode, which she seems more like a background character that just came in and said a little something. So I don't know. I'm not sure if we're going to be getting more screen time of her, but I guess it's possible. I don't know. But basically what she says is, she says this to King Ezekiel. She says, here's the beautiful thing, Your Majesty. You can tear it out and you can cut it down. You can burn it and you can throw it all away. But if you want, it can all grow back. And she's referring to King Ezekiel's royal garden. Now the reason she says this is because apparently there is some type of animal or insect infesting the royal garden, so they're gonna have to burn it and cut it all down, so whatever that is doesn't spread to the rest of the crops, because that's like one of their main sources of food. So now the reason why this quote is important is because, to me, this symbolizes, well, for one, the royal garden, since we got introduced to the kingdom, has always symbolized the state of the kingdom itself. What, like, we see the royal garden is, it's all green, it's a lot of it, it's healthy, just like the state of the kingdom. Further strengthens my argument is that in this episode, when Benjamin and Richard dies, we see that the royal garden is getting shorter. It's getting shorter, and it's not looking as healthy. It's a little bit rotten. It's not looking as good as it initially did, and that's because we're losing some people. And I think that could also symbolize the King Ezekiel's decision to fight, because, and here's why: if King Ezekiel decides to fight, he may lose some people. The kingdom itself might get destroyed a bit, but if he wants, he can always build it back and regain that state that the kingdom is in right now. I've got another quote that I want to share with you, and then I'm gonna give my thoughts on this. It's basically a little exchange between King Ezekiel and Benjamin before he died. So the king says, actually Richard the king starts off and says, "This world drives one mad. People will live through each and every kind of misery. Tyrants, genocide. Systems acquire hate, which others enjoy freedom on the same piece of land. Is this how we must live now? It is mere luck that we are not insane ourselves." Then Benjamin says, the world does drive people crazy now, but you made us another world." Basically saying that, yes, the world itself does drive people mad, but this world you created for us, it kind of gives us that humanity itself kind of lost. Like, you're kind of giving that back to us, and that's why we can prosper. That's why we can survive. That's why we can live. That's why we can work together. It's because of all that, this new world that you created for us, that we're not insane, that we're not mad. I mean, with a couple exceptions like Richard, who, with some stuff, just like some really bad stuff happened to them. They've been traumatized so much that they can't really go back. Even if time were to be reversed, except like they will keep all their memories and the zombie apocalypse, like before the zombie apocalypse, and just put them back in normal society, I still don't think they'd be able to function like a normal person, like Richard, because they've just been traumatized that badly. So some people it's an exception, but for most of them in the kingdom, they've been able to gain that humanity back because of the community that King Ezekiel created for him. I said earlier that I would go more into detail about why the king chose to fight, and the reason why I think he really chose to fight was because of this quote. I think the king really thought about what Benjamin said, and decided, you know what, maybe he's right. Maybe it's not all for nothing. Maybe if I do fight, yeah, I may lose some things, but ultimately I think I'd be doing more good than bad. Now he doesn't say this, but I'm thinking this is how he feels. Maybe he rethought some things and decided that the kingdom really is worth fighting for. Even if you lose some things, it's ultimately will be worth it. And I think that quote really made the king think, like, maybe, yeah, I think I do agree with this. So I think that's a main reason why he decided to fight. And I also think another main reason he decided to fight was just the death of Benjamin, because Benjamin was pretty close to Ezekiel, and I'm pretty sure he just decided, like the theme of the episode is enough is enough. I'm pretty sure that's what he thought. Enough is enough, and he decided to fight back, and that's what pushed him to make that decision ultimately. Oh yeah, I said I was gonna get into the reasoning of Richard, also, and his plan. So Richard's plan was was for Richard to hide a little bit of the offering that they always give to the saviors, and once the saviors would find out, they would kill Richard in return, because at least Richard thought he was going to be the one to die, because I think it was either last episode or no, it was the episode before, before that, where Gavin, the dude with the long hair, the douchebag, yeah, well, they're all douchebags, but the douchiest douchebag, he's the one who said, when we come back and when I get the chance to kill someone, you're going to be the first one I kill. He told Richard that. So Richard thought that he was going to be the one to die, and we know that didn't happen. But he was planning on dying, and his death was supposed to give Ezekiel and the rest of the motivation to finally fight back. But we know that didn't happen because because Benjamin ended up dying instead. So he made another plan that, well, we can still use this death to our advantage. We can still try to make everyone fight back and realize, like, this cannot keep happening. We can try to use the sorrow and all the feelings of everyone right now, try to use it to our advantage, and just try to fight back. And that kind of seems like an okay plan, and Morgan was kind of with it at first, but the main reason why he changed his mind at the end was because Richard said that very same night that he was talking to Morgan and telling him his backstory and whatever, which I'll kind of get into later, but this is near the end of the review. But he was supposed to tell Ezekiel. He was supposed to tell Ezekiel and the rest of the kingdom that ultimately Benjamin's death was his fault. He was supposed to tell him that. He told Morgan that he would tell him that, but he didn't, and that made Morgan distrust Richard. And he already didn't like Richard, one, because he got Benjamin killed, and two, because their ideals was always clashing. Morgan was always against killing and against violence, and Richard was always, yo, we have to kill them, we have to use violence, we have to do all that. So there was like kind of complete opposites of each other, so they was always clashing, so they really didn't like each other. So Morgan never really trusted him to begin with. But this gave him even more reason not to trust him, because Richard gave him his word that he would. I don't know if he gave him his word, but he said that he would tell King Ezekiel and the rest of them that Benjamin's death was his fault, but he didn't do that. So that's what ultimately led Morgan to kill Richard in the end. But he still kind of kept with the plan, because he used Richard's death as a means to let the saviors know that they get it. It was basically like a facade. It's basically a facade they put on. They put on a fake face, and basically just told the kingdom, I'm told the saviors what they wanted to hear, what they wanted to see, just so they can gain that trust back, and so they wouldn't see an attack coming. They want them to think that they're completely under their control, which they kind of are, but at least they're making a plan to fight back now. But they don't want the saviors to know that. They want them to keep fooling them, and they want them to keep thinking that they're completely under their control, and that they're not even thinking of rebelling. And so that's why Morgan did what he did. But part of the other reason was because he just wanted revenge, obviously, against Richard. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this review. A lot of stuff happened. It's a really good episode. A lot of symbolism. I really like the motif and how it tied in with the theme. Last week's episode, like I said, wasn't a fan, but this week's episode, they really stepped their game up. Dang, 2 deaths. Dang, like, I wouldn't call them major deaths, but they're pretty good deaths. I mean, they were pretty big deaths. But I'm pretty sure everyone pretty much knew that at least Benjamin was gonna die, just because of how much screen time he was getting in the episode. Like, Benjamin never got that much screen time before, so this is basically how you know when someone's gonna die. And in a Walking Dead episode, for someone who normally doesn't get a lot of screen time to suddenly start getting a lot of screen time and a lot of character development, then you can probably tell, okay, yeah, they're probably about to kill this guy or girl off, just to make it more impactful. Because if they wouldn't have given Benjamin that much screen time and just killed them off anyways, no one, I'm pretty sure no one would have cared. Like, it probably would have been almost equivalent as a background character dying. Like, it wouldn't have been as impactful at all. But yeah, that's it for this review. I really like this review. It was a really good. I really like this review. My brain is frying, but I really like this episode. I watched the episode preview, and it looks like we're going back to the hills. I think it was the hilltop. We're going back to the hilltop with Daryl's there. That's where you went. Daryl went there. Maggie is there. Obviously, she's still there. Wait, is she? Yeah, she's still there. Sasha's there. So basically, what's gonna happen? What looks like is gonna happen next episode is the saviors are gonna. Well, if you don't want to know, spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the preview, but for those of you who have seen it or want to know, basically it looks like next episode the saviors are gonna show up at the hilltop, and they're gonna be searching for Daryl. So that's all I know. And it looks like Sasha and Rosetta is going to Negan's base, and they're looking for him. But that's all I know. So it looks like it has the possibility of being a really good episode next week and being an okay episode. Just depends on how they do it. But that's it. I'm out. Like the video if you liked it. Sub if you want to see more videos. This is Quintessential Reviews, and stay tuned because that Erase review is coming soon. I know I keep saying it, but it is. I would have spent all day writing down notes for that, but I spent all day writing down notes for this video. But that's it for me. I'm out. Peace.